The African savanna is in drought. Almost every animal has already moved on, following the smell of distant rain, searching for water that still exists somewhere else. But somewhere, in the dry heart of this dying land, one mother lioness has remained behind.
She has 2 cubs, too small, too young, to survive the journey everyone else has already taken. And now she faces an impossible choice. Stay here and watch this place slowly run out of life. Or leave the only shelter her cubs have ever known and risk everything. Because in a drought, even a mother lion cannot protect her cubs from a world that is disappearing around them. A drought does not arrive in a single day. It builds slowly, quietly, long before it becomes visible to anyone watching from a distance. The grass thins first. Then the small waterholes disappear. Then the larger ones begin shrinking too. Day by day, the heat rises earlier each morning. And lingers longer into the night. Animals begin changing their behavior long before humans would notice anything at all. This is one of those droughts. Weeks in the making. Now reaching the point where survival itself is becoming uncertain. The pride this lioness belongs to has already made its decision. They moved days ago, following routes their prides have used during past dry seasons. Searching for water that may still exist somewhere beyond the horizon. She did not go with them. Inside a den hidden beneath low, rocky cover, 2 cubs lie pressed against each other. Still too small to walk the distances the rest of the pride is now covering, still completely dependent on her. This was not an act of bravery. It was the only decision available to her. A mother cannot ask cubs this young to survive a journey their bodies are not ready for. So she stayed, while the rest of her pride disappeared across the dry horizon. For now, she is completely alone, and with every passing day, leaving will become more dangerous. But staying may soon become impossible. The savanna is changing, not suddenly, but completely. Large grazing herds that once moved slowly across these plains have already left. Zebra, buffalo, all of them responding to the same problem: move toward water or risk not surviving the season at all. Where herds once grazed for weeks, now only dry stalks remain. The ground itself tells the story of what has already happened here. Old elephant tracks cut across the cracked earth. Across the savanna, animals are now responding to the same problem. There is less water, less grass, and every day there are fewer reasons to stay. Back inside the den, The two cubs sleep pressed against each other, unaware that the world outside their den is quietly running out of everything they will eventually need: water, food, and time. Their survival depends entirely on one animal: their mother. She is the only barrier between them and everything happening outside. The heat, the lack of water, the disappearing opportunities to hunt. Right now, her cubs need nothing more than warmth and rest. But soon, they will need far more than that. And the land around them has less to give with every passing day. Their world is becoming smaller every day. And soon, their mother will have to decide whether staying here is still possible at all. Inside the den, something is beginning to change. Not in the cubs, in her. She has not made a successful hunt in several days, each attempt costing more energy than the last. Each failure pushing her further into a problem with no easy solution.
A lactating mother's body works differently than most people realize. Producing milk requires energy.
It requires hydration. It requires a steady supply of food to sustain the process at all. When any of these becomes scarce, the body responds. Slowly, quietly, without warning. Milk production does not stop immediately, but it begins to change, becoming less abundant, less consistent. The cubs still nurse the way they always have, pressing close against her. Searching instinctively for what they need, but they remain hungry afterward. In normal conditions, a mother lion's body naturally adapts to the demands of raising young cubs. But these are not normal conditions. She now needs more water than before. More food than before. More energy than before. At the exact moment when all three are becoming harder to find. This is one of the harsh realities of motherhood in the wild. Her body will keep demanding resources, whether the land around her can provide them or not. She lies still for a long moment after the cubs finish nursing. Her ribs now more visible beneath her coat than they were only weeks ago. Her breathing slightly heavier than it should be for simply lying still. The cubs settle against her stomach, already drifting back to sleep. Unaware of the toll this is taking on the only protection they have. She closes her eyes briefly, then opens them again. Listening, watching the entrance of the den. Because somewhere out there, beyond the heat, beyond the dry wind, lies the only thing capable of changing what is happening inside her body. Food. And she is beginning to run out of time to find it. The sun begins to lower across the savanna, color draining slowly from the sky. Lions are built for this transition, more active during the cooler hours. Their eyes adjusted for low light, Their bodies are built to take advantage of the cooler hours after sunset. She rises slowly from beside her cubs. They stir slightly, but settle again almost immediately. Too young to follow, too small to survive what is ahead of her tonight. She moves toward the entrance of the den, pauses there for a long moment. Looking back once, then steps out into the open.
The land beyond the den feels different at night, quieter than it was only weeks ago.
She crosses ground that would normally hold the scent of dozens of animals. Tonight it holds almost nothing. Old tracks already fading into the dry earth. No fresh signs of movement anywhere close.
She walks for a long time, covering distance that would have been unnecessary only weeks ago.
When prey was closer, when water was closer, when everything required less effort than it does now. Eventually, she reaches what remains of a waterhole she has visited before. It is barely recognizable. The water has retreated far from its original edges,
leaving behind a wide ring of cracked, hardened mud.
She approaches carefully, then stops. A crocodile lies motionless near what little water remains, half its body exposed on the dry mud, unable to fully submerge in water this shallow. Even animals that depend on this waterhole are being affected now. She waits at a distance, watching. Until she is certain it is safe enough to approach.
Then lowers her head and drinks carefully from the remaining water.
Knowing this is one of the few moments she cannot afford to lose focus. A short distance beyond the water, she catches a scent, faint, unfamiliar in a different way. She follows it cautiously, not toward danger, toward something already finished. The remains of an old carcass lies scattered across the dry ground. Picked over already, bones mostly bare. Whatever killed this animal, whatever fed on it afterward, has long since moved on. She approaches slowly, studying what little remains. This is not how she normally feeds, not in her life as a hunter. Not in a month since these cubs were born. But tonight is different. Tonight her body is asking for anything it can find. She lowers her head toward the bones, taking what little still clings to them. Small, insufficient, nowhere near enough to satisfy the hunger that has been building for days, but enough to give her body a little more energy to keep going. This is survival reduced to its most basic form, taking whatever the land is still willing to offer, even when it offers almost nothing at all. She remains there for only a few minutes.
Then continues walking back toward the den.
Back toward two cubs who have no understanding of how close their mother came to returning with absolutely nothing tonight. She walks through the darkness alone, carrying barely enough to matter. But carrying it forward anyway, because that is the only option left to her. Morning arrives the way it always does now. Slowly, then all at once. She reaches the den just as the first light spreads across the horizon. The cubs stir immediately at her scent, pressing close, searching. She lies down beside them and lets them nurse. What little she managed to take from the night before, barely enough to make a difference. But still something, still more than nothing. Outside the den, the savanna feels different this morning. Emptier, quieter than it has felt in weeks. Far in the distance, a small group of vultures circles slowly above a single point on the horizon. Patient, already aware of something the rest of the land has not yet discovered. Closer to the den, the bleached curve of an old skull lies half buried in the cracked earth, smoothed by wind and time. A quiet reminder of how long this land has already been testing the animals that remain on it. Drought does not kill quickly. It does not arrive with violence or confrontation. It simply removes things, slowly, one resource at a time. Less grass, less water, less prey, less energy, less margin for error with every day that passes. She rises after the cubs finish nursing, walking to the entrance of the den. Standing there for a long moment, looking out across land that has given her almost nothing in recent days. Land that once supported an entire pride, now barely supporting one mother and two cubs too young to understand what is happening around them.
She has stayed here as long as she reasonably can, hoping conditions would shift.
Hoping rain would come. Hoping her cubs would grow just enough to make the next decision easier. None of that has happened yet. And the longer the drought continues, the fewer options remain. Staying no longer guarantees anything, but leaving carries its own risks entirely. Her cubs are still too small for a long journey, still too vulnerable for open ground with no shelter in sight.
This is the moment she has been quietly approaching for days. Without fully admitting it to herself, the choice she has been delaying is no longer something she can delay much longer. She sits at the entrance of the den for a long time, watching the cubs behind her. Small, still unaware, still trusting completely in whatever she decides. Then she turns back toward the open plain, scanning the horizon slowly. The way she has done every morning for the past several days. Searching for something, anything, a sign of rain in the distance. A shift in the wind.
Some small indication that conditions might change before she is forced to act. There is nothing. Only dry land stretching far beyond what her eyes can fully measure. She is no longer asking herself whether she will eventually have to move her cubs. That question has already been answered by everything she has witnessed over the past several days. The empty plains, the shrinking waterhole, the exhausted crocodile unable to fully submerge,
the warthog she could not reach.
All of it pointing toward the same conclusion.
This place can no longer sustain them. The only question left is timing. If she waits too long, her own strength may decline further, making the eventual journey even harder to survive. If she moves too soon, her cubs may not yet be strong enough for the distance ahead. Still too vulnerable for open ground, with no shelter in sight. This is the moment she has been quietly approaching for days. Without fully admitting it to herself, the choice she has been delaying is no longer something she can delay much longer. She sits at the entrance of the den for a long time, watching the cubs behind her. Small, still unaware, still trusting completely in whatever she decides. Then she turns back toward the open plain, scanning the horizon slowly. The way she has done every morning for the past several days. Searching for something, anything. A sign of rain in the distance. A shift in the wind. Some small indication that conditions might change before she is forced to act. There is nothing. Only dry land stretching far beyond what her eyes can fully measure.